I also forgot to start the recording, so I'll go back. Are there any questions so far? Are folks doing good? I'm just kind of building in these clouds, playing with the texture a little bit. These are kind of fun. Mine are very abstract. I'm going to use the paper towel likely to do a little bit of texturing with black on top of this. So I have some fun lines in here purposefully. So if anybody wants to grab their black, you can put a little dollop on your plate. I have about a thumbnail's worth. Well, probably like a smaller than a thumbnail. And I'll use my my big brush, and you can apply the black in the whole area above the clouds, and then we'll soften it down, and then we'll bring a little bit of the blue on top. So save some of that blue if you haven't used it all. We're going to use some of that with a paper towel to kind of fade into the black. But I am going to do some nice smooth brush strokes and just fill in this top night sky black. And then we'll use a little bit of black on a paper towel and we'll bring it down into these clouds. I'm just kind of rounding around the top. All right. And you can, if you wanted to bring in a little bit of water, you could. I'm kind of just using the flat, small edge of my big brush, just kind of outline the top of the clouds, just to say, hey, this is where the clouds are. And I'm just coming right down to it. And I'm just doing some left, right, kind of swishing brush strokes. You can get here any way that you want. It's always fun to play with how you apply the paint. There's no wrong way of doing it when you're filling in a solid background like this. But I am doing I'm doing horizontal brush strokes, just so it's nice and clean. It's all consistent. And we'll add in some really beautiful, soft black, like cloud layering into the blues. So it's a little bit of and we'll mix maybe a little bit of blue with the black to create a little bit of a darker blue tone that kind of looks like black a little bit. So it'll be kind of fun. But these are all basic background colors. There's more that will go on top of all of this. So it's embracing the experience, the journey to where we're going. Trusting the process, trusting the journey. I've been in so many classes and people are like, yeah, about a half an hour. I didn't really know where we were going. But we get somewhere together. So I'm just filling in the whole top, making sure there's no white peeping through. Corners. If you have a canvas, I would definitely paint the top of the canvas black and those in the left and the right, kind of in the night sky. That'll make it look really nice. If you're painting on paper like me, you don't have to worry about that. This is where it starts to darken and dampen. It's going to be really quite fun. And I'm experimenting a little bit. I put a little bit of water on my brush and I'm starting to just kind of have fun. The tops of these clouds are going to stay blue, but kind of in the middle of these clouds, you can start to add in like a little bit of darkness. I'm going to use a paper towel to be more intentional. But anywhere you want to start, I have water on my brush, but I'm using a little bit of black. And there's a reflection with, let me see if I can turn it. Yeah, you can see it's just kind of starting to darken in some areas. Kind of using my finger a little bit. We're going to use the paper towel to be more defined. I'm going to go grab one. But take another minute or so to just do the blue on the bottom, get the base layer of clouds and the black on the top. And then we'll use a paper towel next just to do some really fun kind of cloud detail. There's a lot of brushes you could use to to do what this paper towel technique is. I'll show you both just to teach you something a little bit new today. Using a dry brush. This isn't going to be the primary method today, but if anybody wants to try it, you can. I actually have this old brush, and old brushes are really good for this. The bristles are kind of like a little funny. I have kind of like a soft tipped brush. It's probably 4 or 5 years old. It's not wet. So what you could do or try if you wanted to, I'm just going to put a little bit of black paint, like, look at that, like a little tiny bit. And this is where if you wanted to try to define some clouds, you could. So what I mean by that is I have a couple of rounded areas. I'm not going to take this to the top of the cloud, but I could take it just underneath. And I could just do a little bit of soft smudging. So we'll do this with the paper towel. But if you wanted to use a dry brush and do some smudging with a little bit of black paint, you could try that. So this is an old head. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of defining the cloud shape by using some lines and using a little bit of this black. Now, if you're kind of smudging black, like there's too much, I'll teach you a trick on how to get around that. You can take a little bit of black paint on this and go to a dry area of your plate, and you can kind of create in a clean pocket. You can kind of smudge it around and move it around, kind of just take some of the paint off that brush. And if you want to get even more paint off, you could put it in another space, or you could even wipe it off on your paper towel a little bit. But what we're doing is we're just kind of outlining and smudging some of this cloud space. And you can use your finger along the way. But we're just creating a little bit of darkness just to really start creating our clouds. Some of the shading in our clouds. If you don't want to do this technique, which is fine, the rounded will give you a little bit of, and the smudging works well. So you can see I'm starting to get a little bit of shaping. You can also use the corner of the paper towel. So I typically use like a piece of paper towel the size of the palm of my hand. And I stick my thumb in the middle, and I kind of wrap my paper towel around it. And I create a tool. I call it a tool because it is. And then you just get a little bit of the paint on it. And this is where you can this is really good for smudging. So we're holding some of the blue space, but we're really kind of highlighting the underside of this thundercloud. Sorry, my internet just got a little crazy. So I'm using the smudging techniques works really well. I'm kind of going on the underside of this thundercloud. And see how that shading, this black that we're adding, is really starting to bring this to life. Now, the nice thing is there's a lot of ways of kind of modifying and changing this if you have too much or too little. But the smudging will help blend it in. So if you have an area, just kind of smudge it in. You can always bring blue back in, so don't worry about that. For me, I want a little bit of black paint. You don't need a lot. Kind of smudging it in. If you want to get creative, go and get a little dollop of blue paint while you're going at it. And guess what? You can bring a little blue paint in right on top of your black. If you ever need to reshape an area, something is too light or too dark, just have fun with bringing this space to life. What we're going for is this. We want to see some rounded clouds on the top. So if you don't have these cloud shapes, take a minute to create that. And one of the things that I just did is this. I put a little white and a little bit of the blue on my paper towel. And look what it just did. It gave me this beautiful, rounded, lighter top. I'll do it again. I'm going to do a little bit of a rounded blue top. This is just a little bit of highlighting, sneaking through. And this is where our clouds, you can do some of this down here. It's about having different layers of contrast to bring our clouds to life. Now I'm using a paper towel because I'm going for just different textures. But if you want to use a brush, you can. Play with this a little bit. I'll use a brush just to show you what the brush take looks like. You can use whatever you want. I grabbed a number 3. So if you want more kind of clear, dominant cloud lines, you can come in here, look at that, and just do some lighter blue kind of cloud lines on top. But you can see how the contrast is really helping. And you might find different pockets. This looks really cool, actually, because we did black and blue. So you can use your brush to kind of outline any of the cool colors that you've come up with, which is kind of neat. So experiment with using your brush. Experiment if you want to even put a little bit of black on your brush, just to kind of, you can go back and forth. It's okay. And it's one of the things I love about these classes is giving you different options. Sometimes using both is a really good thing. But take a few minutes just to dial in your clouds. I'm going to do the same thing. You might have some darker areas and some lighter areas like I do. And I really like this kind of whiter line on top. It's just making my cloud look really clean and clear. Like I want to highlight that this is actually a cloud and not a blue blob. So I can come in here. I might even come in with like a little bit of this blue with a paintbrush just to add some shaping. You can do that. This is, again, these are just details in the background. We're putting a lot of detail in the foreground. These are details we're just going to appreciate in the distance. So just do what you like in this area. That's the most important thing. You've probably heard me say that before. Do what you visually like, what looks good to you. Does not need to look like mine. For me, as I lean back, I want a little bit more like differentiation between like these clouds. So I might like truly make this like a cloud layer in the middle. Haven't decided yet. I might bring in a little bit more black. And I'm using that number 3 just to kind of give it visually some more structure. But I'm glad I came in with the black and the smudging because it just gave me some nice shaded areas as well. And I might even come in and blend in some of this black down here. I might smudge in just to blend in down. So just have fun for a few minutes. Let me see here. So I'm interested in doing a little smudging with this black I just brought in, getting a little crazy here. I'm going to do a little bit of a fade of black down from right here. So I might do a little bit of black smudging under my cloud to really make it pop. This is where you can experiment. I'm just having fun. That's what we're here for. All right. So I'll let everyone take a minute and I'll check in. How are folks doing with this step? We're going to jump to our moon next. Once this is all dry, we can check in with one another here. We can do some of our background detail as the next step, which is going to be really fun. So I am just kind of having fun and teasing some of this out. We are going to see a lot of this. We're not going to cover it up. So some of our taller objects in the front are going to kind of come into it, but we're still going to see this and appreciate it, which is really quite nice. So where I'm going with this is if you want to keep playing with this, even after, you can. Like I might, because I really I want to darken it in some areas. So just know that you can have fun with the evolution of this cloud. I'm kind of having fun with the colors. All right. So I'll pause. I'm going to remove my pin and I'm going to switch to gallery view and I'll check in with each of you. How's it going? Does anybody want to show off their work so far? Oh, very cool, Diane. Very nice. Oh, that looks great, Susan. Nice. Oh, Douglas, very nice. Oh, Mary, you definitely have clouds. I can see those. You too, Janice. You did the nice white tops. Awesome. Cool. Oh, there's Kara. Kara, you have clouds too. I think you all did better clouds than me tonight. You're all dialed in on that detail. Oh, Jill. Oh, Jill has sweeping, voluptuous clouds coming in. I like it. Jill did some major swirling and good shaping. Looks cool. Wonderful. Awesome. So give me a 1 more minute. If you want another minute just to keep playing with this area, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to move on. I think people need another minute or two. Okay, cool. So I'll keep an eye on the clock. I'll give folks 1 more minute just to kind of like look at it. If you want to stretch, that's fine. But we'll jump into the next. Oh, this next part's going to be fun. So we're not going to do our stars and our moon yet. We're going to let our sky dry, but we're going to jump into doing a little bit of the black flower detail next, which will be quite fun. So you can find one of those smaller brushes, maybe your number 3. I would say your 2 or 3. I'll probably use my 3 brush, but if you have your 2 handy, that's probably good too. Or your 1, 2, or 3. If you have these brushes. Any of those would work just fine. And we're going to use black paint and a little bit of water. So if you're ready to try this next step, I'm going to do a pea size of black. Pea size means literally the size of a pea of black on your picture, on your plate. And I want you to make a water wash. So I will use, what brushes do I have handy here? I'm going to use the 3. I'm going to put like 2 little kind of dollops of water. As you kind of mix your black around on your plate, put a couple dollops of water, just thin it out like 10%, maybe 20 if you want to get crazy. And I'm adding like 2 or 3 or 4 scoops. I'm just thinning out this black just a bit for this next step. You want it to be nice consistency. It can be a little watery, that's okay. Mine's much more looser. And this is where we're going to have some fun. So I'll give you all a minute to do that if you were transitioning. So I did a pea size of black and I added some water just to loosen it up. You can see when I move it around my well, it looks like I have a lot there, but I don't. And if you look at the inspiration that's in the chat window, if you don't have access to that inspiration, maybe I'll just drop it in again really quick as folks are mixing that. Excuse me. All right, I'm going to drop in the inspiration just in case folks need it. Excuse me. There we go. And if you look at the picture, what we're going to do next are some of these like wispy black flowers in the background. So we're going to start with stems and then we'll bring these to life. So as you're mixing that black, spin that paintbrush on your plate so you have a nice clean edge. So it's nice and pointy and clean. And we're going to do a kind of a long wispy piece of like a flower coming up. And we're going to do it over here on the right. And it's going to kind of, we're doing a long stick kind of figure. So it's going to, for me, it's going to kind of start in the middle of these clouds. And I'm just going to come down and it can kind of be a little meandery. It does not have to be straight. This is black. I just did a little, just a line down. And I'm going to put a circle. So we're going to do little circular flowers or leaves off of this. So I'm going to pick any size that you want. Mine's probably going to be the size of a quarter or of a nickel. Just a little black circle. And then I'm going to work my way down. I'm going to do a little stem, a little side branch off the left. And I'm going to do these fairly even. So I'll do one off the left and one off the right here. It's hard to see this. Let's see. There we go. And I'm going to do another circle. So this circle is going to be the same size. It's called consistency. So try doing the same size. And we're going to work our way down. Very narrow little stems and sticks. So the circle needs to be the same size. You're going to do one on the left and one on your right. And you're going to work your way down and take your time. Maybe doing your circles first so you know how long your stems are. That might be easier. Let's try doing the circles first. There we go. That's a little easier. And my circles, they're not touching, but they're pretty close to one another. We're not going to fill them in yet. We're going to do that after. So I am good doing my circles first. Just take your time. And they're about, I don't know, a quarter of an inch from my stem. And you can always change the size of your stem. If it's too thin, you can always make it bigger. Just doing lots of circles, alternating from the left to the right, just kind of building in this object. And then we're going to paint it in a very unique way together. And if you wanted to do something different, you know, with these classes, you have my blessing to kind of do your own thing. And I may not go all the way down to the bottom. I might leave a little bit of a stick on the end because I'm going to put another flower down there. And then I'm going to get a little crazy. I'm going to add another kind of stick coming off just for another little bit of detail. I did a couple of side, and I'm going to do a few more circles off of these. So maybe I'll do like one more on the top. These circles could be flowers, they can be leaves, they can be whatever you want them to be. They could be either for me. And you can do as many or as few of these as you wish. This is just beautiful background detail, and we're going to fill these in together in just a few. So one of the things I like teaching in my classes is visually a balance. So for me, this is like visually balanced so far with these. So it's a little bit here, it's a little on the left. We're going to add more black detail as we go. That's why we're switching to some of this detailed work. This class tonight is all about having fun with details and layering flowers on top of one another in a different way. It'll be quite fun. So the cool part of this inspiration is we're doing darker contrasting flowers in the back. And we're doing beautiful light contrasts in the front, which is so fun. Down here is a little kind of, it's kind of like one of those wispy summer flowers. I did a little bit of a U first, and then I have, these are kind of vertical lines. And I'll put little circles, little black circles on the top. So we're going to add more of these flowers. And if you wanted to switch to a smaller brush, you could. This one's so far so good. But I'm going to switch to a smaller one for other detail. I might switch to a smaller one soon here, but take your time. I want you, any way that you want, is to add in a layer across of black flowers. I'm going to transition to doing like two other elements that they have in this picture, which is quite pretty. But before I do that, I'm going to fill in these little black circles. This is the fun part. I'm going to use a lot of water and very little black. I want these leaves to be a light opacity black filling in. So if you wanted to try this, you could. You can kind of make a water wash and just do some kind of circular spinning. So you can kind of see some of the blue in the background. Look at this, so fun. So you're filling in these with a really kind of soft, watery black color. If you want to try this, you can. It's a watery black, and I'm just filling in these. Kind of fun. You can mix this black, very watery wash. Bring it a little closer so you can see it. See how it has just a little bit of a darker inside? Just water and a little bit of black. Kind of like, you know, the 70s back in the day where they had those like green tinted glasses. It's just a little bit of a green tint, but it's a little bit of a black tint. So again, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to, but I love the look. It's a little different.
So, sorry to ask, is that a black wash you're doing on that?
It's a black wash. Yep. Very lot of water, like 90% water. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And the reflection, there you go. You can see it in that regard. I'll turn this. My light is shining on it. And it's, let's see here. There we go. It's a little bit better. Perfect. So use a little bit of a black wash to fill in some of these circles. Excuse me. And I'm literally doing like circular brush strokes just to fill this in, keeping it really simple. And there's no rush. So if I'm going faster than you, don't worry about it. There's no race. I'm just here to demonstrate the technique. I love using this water wash. It's so much fun. You might want to make yours a little darker. In the picture, they're a little darker. I'm going to leave it as is for now because I can, there's still time to make them darker if I want to. I'm going to finish all of these, the black layering of flowers like we talked about a few minutes ago across the middle. And then I'll kind of lean back in my chair and say, okay, do I want to make any more modifications before I paint on top of these with the second layer of flowers? But I'll move a little quickly just so we can get through all of these details. So another detail they have in here is kind of more of a leafy shape versus these circular shapes for leaves. So I'm going to do like another kind of stick, kind of bending up and out. And I might do like a few secondaries. And I'm going to add a different type of greens to this one. Greens, aka leaves. And this will add a little bit of variety for the background. And I'm going to use the same technique. So I'm going to do the shape of the leaf first, and then I'm going to fill it in the same way for consistency. But these are going to kind of be long and lean, and the ends are going to be pointy, and the middle is going to be a little bit bigger. So you can add as many or as few as you wish. But these leaves can kind of, they don't need to be touching each of the stems, but as long as they're near them. And you want to do them the same consistent shape. So find a leaf shape and size that you like and just repeat that. And this is using flat black paint. I'm not using any water because I want really clean lines. And as you're painting, I always kind of lean back. I don't want to overcrowd a branch with leaves. So that's where I look for balance. So I leave enough gaps in between so it looks natural. So see, I have spacing in between each of these for them to look consistent. I did that on purpose. You don't need to have a ton of leaves. So if you properly space them, you get the same look and feel from afar. So these are just tips and techniques that you kind of, the more you paint and practice, you'll kind of start to notice them by using your eye. I did a leaf on the end of this branch, which kind of just helps end that branch out. So if you wanted to try that, you could. If you want to tuck a leaf behind a leaf, feel free. Down here, I might do some of these kind of Y-like flowers with those circle baubles on them. Again, choose which ones you like. This is a background layer detail. This is gonna kind of be one layer in the distance, quite fun. And I'm going really slow. I'm using the tip of this 3 brush. It's working for me, but you could always switch brushes to do some of this other smaller detail if you needed to. And there's kind of one of these little guys kind of popping out on the bottom. It's kind of fun. I might grab my smaller brush to do some of the little black dots down there. It's okay to switch brushes. Typically, when you paint, obviously you're encouraged to not feel rushed. And artists who've been painting a long time know that they pause more comfortably to switch brushes or to reflect. And one of the things that you might have noticed in my classes is that I do that intentionally because we typically move so quickly in our day-to-day lives. It's important just to know with art, it's okay to slow down a little bit and pause and breathe, but also reflect on your work along the way. So you've probably heard me say that a million times, but it's so important. And I'm doing a balance, excuse me, of these little dainty flowers to visually balance the black in the background. So I'm doing that intentionally. All right. And then I'll probably just do 1 or 2 more of these kind of wide open ones over here just to fill in the black flower sequence in the background here. And I'm going to fill these leaves in the same way with that black water wash if anybody's already there. So just take some time. And once we're done this black layer, we'll let them dry and move to our sky next. And some of you might want to paint your own type of flower. That's fine. Always incorporate your own ideas. But I love, one of the things I love about this layer of black flowers in the distance is that they're all a little different. They all work together, which is kind of nice. And if you have gaps like I do right here, that's okay. You don't need to fill in every darn space. For me, as I lean back, I might do like a leaning kind of flower in right here just to fill this little space right here. But you use your eye and determine how busy or how not you want this space. You get to determine that. We'll have a much more simple layer of lighter, whiter, and yellow flowers on top, which is going to be quite lovely. And you can see the intent of having this a lighter space on the bottom because it's brightening and highlighting some of the work that we're doing, which is kind of fun. And we'll bring our night sky to life here in just a few minutes with our beautiful crescent moon and our white stars. That will be our touch for the sky. So we'll have this beautiful balance of brights and lights and darker contrasts. It'll be quite fun. So I'm going to get that black water wash and I'm going to fill in these longer, leaner flowers. Yeah, petals, pardon. And you can decide how dark you want these. For me, I like it just like a touch, just so you can see that there's a little in the middle here. You can get as fancy as you want filling those in. But I love these blues are one of my favorite colors. It's just so calming. And as this black dries in the middle, you might say, like for me, this is like a little too light. So you might want to come in and darken maybe some of these circles just a little bit. It's up to you. You could even do like a half of it a little bit darker, get a little fancy. If you need to change your water wash mix, if you need to make it a little darker, just add a tiny touch more black and swish it around. So what I'm going to do is just make it a tiny touch darker, which is just I'm increasing the black paint pigment in the water. And I'm just doing some gentle sweeping brush strokes to fill this in. I love how I can still see some of the blue within these shapes. I really like that personally. But I'll keep an eye on the clock. What I'll do is I'll give everyone another kind of full minute just to kind of play around with filling in these shapes, getting in some of these basic layers, and then I'll check in with the group. You want to grab a beverage or stretch, feel free. But we'll switch to doing the sky next. And if there's any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'm just going to dial in some of the colors for these, just making them a little darker in some areas. Sometimes the water dries a little lighter and you don't know what it's going to look like until you get there. It kind of looks like a little bit of a gray inside of these using this black water wash, which I really like personally. But if you don't like that and you want to actually fill these in like totally black, you can. If you want to fill them in with a lighter color, go for it. We're personally keeping these more of a darker tone because we're putting a lighter flowers on top of this. So I'm going to pause and kind of reflect. We are going to do our night sky next with our moon and our stars. So I'm just ever so slightly just refining some of the line where my clouds meets my sky. I'm just kind of doing a little bit of a clean line. For me, that's important. You may not want to do that. In the picture, it's very fluffy looking. Some of you have like very fluffy clouds. Mine's a little more abstract tonight, which is totally fine. I'm happy with like the way it came out for me. So everybody's going to be kind of satisfied in their own way. But I'll pause and I'll take a look at each of you. I'll remove the pin, switch to gallery. Oh, very nice, Diane. Great work. It looks so beautiful. All right, Douglas, let's see yours. Nice. Oh, good balance. That's going to look wonderful. So Douglas, where you have that gap in the middle between your flowers, you can put one of your lighter flowers right in there and kind of burst up in between, and then you'll be able to see all of the flowers. There's Terry's. Terry, that's so gorgeous. You went a little darker on your flowers. That's going to look really nice. Oh, Jill, look at Jill's clouds. I'm just wowed by Jill's clouds tonight. I don't know about you all. All right, there's Kira's. Kira, nice job. Kira, you're going to fill those flowers and the petals in? Yeah. Okay, cool. That will look really good. Miss Susan's in the zone. Mary's in the zone. All right. So I'm going to give you all, just take another minute just to refine that area. I know Kira is still filling in stuff, and it looked like Douglas was still working on things too. So just take a minute to fill in some of those flowers and work on that detail. And again, look at the balance of that space. I'll keep an eye on the clock here. We're doing good on time. You can also kind of look at your clouds and make any modifications. I might play around with my clouds a little bit. Maybe a little water, maybe a little bit of black. We'll see where this takes us here. And if anyone has any questions as you're working away, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm here to help virtually. I can't come over and help you, but I'm here as moral support. Might get a little bit of this blue. You can do kind of some cloud fluffing. There's so much you can do. anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'm just being a little playful with my clouds. We are going to do a large, and I'm going to do a thin crescent moon in the sky. So part of that crescent moon is going to layer over some of these clouds, which will be really fun. But I'll keep an eye on the clock. Give folks just a little bit more time. I'm just adding a little bit more cloud-like shape to my clouds. I felt like I kind of had a little bit of a blob going on, and I'm using a little bit of white, a little bit. Just to kind of reshape in areas. And the nice thing is that I can always change the way this looks. It doesn't, can always paint over it. As you all know, it's kind of a fun part of art where things can evolve any way that you want. And then if you don't like it, you can just paint over it. It's quite nice. Sometimes we just kind of lean back and do fillers. I might come back to some of this. And in just a minute, we will transition to the sky together. So finish whatever area you're on. And if you're not done one thing or another, don't worry. Like, you can always go back and fill those flowers in. We're going to do the sky first, and then we're going to come back down and do that another layer on top. My clouds are a little whimsical. All right, cool. So we'll slowly transition to doing the next step. We are going to mix a little bit of yellow with white. We're going to make a canary yellow. So you can do about, you won't need this much, but if you want to do like a thumbnail size of yellow, you will not need more than that. I'll do it with you. You probably could do even smaller, like 2 peas worth of yellow. That's probably a lot. Look at that. I don't have very much at all. That's about a thumbnail, actually. I lied. And then I'm going to put a little scoop of white too. So I'm doing kind of like 2/3 yellow, 1/3 white. And then I'll mix those together. The reason we're doing this is because it creates a softer kind of opacity of this color for us. And I'm using one of my tiny brushes. So if you ever got one of my kits and you got the 2/0 brush, that's the one I'm going to use for this. If you have a 1, or if you have one here, whatever you have on hand is fine. But I'm going to use my 2/0, and I'm just going to mix this yellow to get a nice soft canary yellow. The white adds grounding and more solidity to the yellow. It's not so bright and like sunflower yellow. It's kind of a little more muted, but it's still punchy for the work that we're doing tonight, which is nice. So I have this beautiful creamy, oh my gosh, so beautiful. And I'm spinning my brush, spinning it on my palette. So it's nice and clean tip. So it has paint on it, but it's not gloppy. So this is where we have courage. We're going to paint the moon together once you're ready. Now, my moon is going to be kind kind of an open C. So I'm going to do a thin line to get the shape first, and then I'm going to slowly fill it in. So my moon, or from a placement perspective, it's going to be in the black and it's going to round down and layer on top of the clouds. So you just have to kind of be brave and do a little bit of a line. So it's like kind of an open C. Don't go too wide, like don't do the full letter C, kind of do like a wide letter C. And use your pinky to balance your hand. And don't rush on this step. And don't fill it in, just really refine this exterior line or the shape in itself. And just do like a coat or two just to get it right for you. And as you can imagine, the ends are going to stay nice and I have a tickle in my throat, excuse me. The ends are going to be nice and thin. But what you can do is you can start to fill in and make the middle of the moon just a little wider. So I'm kind of starting at the ends and kind of working my way towards the middle and making it just a little wider. See that? But I'm keeping this end nice and small because you can always make your moon bigger, but it's hard to make your bigger moon smaller. And a couple coats of paint is exactly what you want. And kind of lean back. For me, I'm still kind of refining the shape. I'm being pretty conservative with my shape because I really just want to dial it in. Kind of curving in the ends just a little bit. You can make your moon bigger than this. You could do a different shape moon. I'm inspired by the simplicity of this moon, but if you want to do it different, absolutely feel free. I'm just going to slowly eyeball it. So the middle of the moon is going to be a little bit bigger. And I'm just kind of leaning back and just eyeballing. You can either make it bigger from the interior of the moon, but now I'm kind of switching to the exterior a little bit. So you can add on a little width from the interior or the exterior. I just switched to the exterior. It's kind of working a little bit better for me, but feel free to experiment with what works best for you. And I use my pinky to stabilize my hand, and you want nice clean edges on this background. Now, if you end up wanting to paint like a bigger moon, feel free. Some of you might be inspired to do that. If anybody's inspired to paint like the man on the moon or anything like that, you may. I will always encourage you to do you in these classes. Always, always. So I'm getting there with my level of satisfaction for my moon. I'm just going to kind of clean up this edge down here. Round it out a little bit. I feel like it needs to be a little wider in some places. Everybody's going to be nitpicky in their own way here, which is all good. And I'm going to probably let it dry, ladies and gents, and then come back and do another layer. I'm getting like a little bit of I can see some of the black coming through. It's because I need to be patient. So I'll lead by example here and be patient to let it dry. I'm just going to kind of pull over this tip just a little bit to extend it down and around. I really wanted to see that tip come down and around. So you'll notice something by kind of leaning back in your chair. Do you like how the ends of your moon are rounded, or are they thin enough? For me, that's an important piece. But I'm going to be patient. I'm going to let it dry. Okay, so wherever you're at with that, excuse me, we're going to get a little bit of white to do the stars. So one way you can do stars is you can use the round end of the brush. So grab one of your smaller brushes, and you can use the round wooden end. And you're going to kind of dip. See, I did a little bit of a white dollop of paint. I'm not going to use anywhere near that. And I dip the end of the brush, and see how it gives me like a little bit of a tulip, a little bit of a dot on the end. You can create your stars using this. So the lighter you touch your end of your paintbrush to your canvas, the smaller the star you'll get, which is really cool. So you can do lots of different size stars. And you're just going to dab them all over in your sky. And a few can kind of just trickle in to the top of your clouds if you wish. And you're just going to paint and do a dance of stars in this beautiful sky. If you want to do a constellation or a planet, I've done a shooting star before. Try doing some bigger ones and smaller ones that will give dimension to your sky. Make it look more realistic. Some can be closer together, some can be further apart. Try not to stick your finger in a star. I've done that many times in these classes. And just do light little taps all over. You're going to know when you have enough stars. Just kind of pause again, mindfully reflect along the way here. Quite pretty. So the star contrast in the sky will be complemented by the work that we're going to do next below. I'm still going to be patient, ladies and gents, and I'm going to let my moon dry because I'm going to do another coat of yellow on top, but I'm just going to be a patient human for a minute. And as the sky is drying, the stars are drying, we're going to move down to the bottom, and we're going to do some of our white flowers next. So these are going to be really quite fun. Use one of your smaller brushes again. And if you're not here yet, don't worry. I just want to be mindful of time. I'm going to use that 2/0 brush. We're going to start from the left and work our way to the right. And we're going to start with one of your smaller brushes and white paint. If you wanted to make a white water wash, you could. I am not for this step, but I'm going to use true white paint for this. And what we're going to do is we're going to do these beautiful kind of like clover looking flowers. These kind of look like poppies that haven't popped yet. And we're going to do, I want to do an odd number of them. So we're going to start by doing the stems. So we're going to go to the left side of our painting, and kind of where there's gaps in between, you're going to do a couple of long stems. So for me, I'm going to come down and I'm going to do some high and some low. So I'm going to layer some on top. Just doing white stems at this point. One's going to be a little higher, one's going to be a little lower, and we're going to paint on top of what we've done. Long white stems, and I'm using a nice thin brush. I'm gonna do a short one. And I'm gonna go about a third over with these, and I'm gonna do an odd number. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All different heights. And just do nice solid white stems. So if you need to do a second coat, feel free. And then on top of these, we're going to do kind of like balloons kind of shapes on top. Or you can say like oval shapes. So I'm just going to do kind of rounded oval shapes. You can make them as big or as small as you wish. But I want them to all be consistent shape. Mine are a little smaller than the picture, but that's all right. And I'm just doing an outline right on top. And we'll add details to these shapes in a minute. If you want them to be more rounded. I wanted to say peanut butter cups, but they're not peanut butter cups. It sounded cute though. All right. And then we have like little rounded lines, kind of vertical rounded lines, kind of like a pumpkin a little bit. Adding a couple of rounded lines in the middle. I'm doing vertical lines, maybe 3 or 4 based on how big yours are. Just coming down, giving them a little bit of texture. Excuse me. Oh, don't stick your finger in it like I did. It's okay, you can fix it. All right. My pinky has a mind of its own. I'm also a lefty, so I probably shouldn't have started on this side, but that's all right. And then just refining these. So if you wanted to make any of those white lines just a little darker, you can go in and outline them. So much fun. And then there's like a little skirt or like a little bit of like a little bit of a fun frilly hat on top of these. So kind of like a little bit of a beret, kind of some crazy hair on top of these. This is another layer. You can call it whatever you wish. You can do little bumps and lines. Put a little hat on the top of these flowers, and we're just doing outlines. We can still see everything behind them. And if you don't want to put a hat on it, you don't have to. Again, you do you. And I'm going to let those dry for a minute. So if you want to add any additional like details, feel free. But I'm going to let those dry because I'm going to do that white water wash on the inside of them. So they're a little filled in, but they are, they're still fairly, I still want to see through them. That's my goal. So we're going to do a white fern next. So I'm being mindful of time here. So we're going to do a fern. It's going to have a little bit of a curve or a wave to it. So the top of my fern is going to be above these white flowers, and I'm going to do the stem of the fern first. So for me, I'm going to find with my brush where I want the top of the fern to be. And I'm just going to kind of whizzle my way down to the middle of the canvas. Like that's going to be my fern. It's a little bendy, but it's going to look great. Just do a little bit of a fern. It can be as straight or as bendy as you want. You want the fern to be, there's 3 components to this layer. There's the white flowers on the left. There's a white fern in the middle, and then we're going to do a yellow fern on the right side. So leave enough room for the yellow fern on the right, and we want the white one to be in the middle-ish. So that's kind of where we're going structurally. And if you wanted to do like 2 little white ferns, you can. So you know the shapes on your canvas. If you want to tuck in a little fern down here, you could. This fern's going to have pretty wide leaves going up on it. So I'm not going to use that space for that because I'm going to do long fern leaves, which I'll show you in just a minute. But once you have this long stem, I'm just doing a second coat of white paint to make it really nice and firm in color. Excuse me. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a little leaf on the top of the fern. So a little point on top and a little bit of like just a little leaf on the top. And I might just do some like kind of horizontal and vertical lines just to give a little texture. It doesn't have to be perfect. And this next part is pretty important with regards to the structure of the fern and the leaves itself. So kind of like a Christmas tree, the branches towards the top of the Christmas tree are more narrow. So these leaves for the fern are more narrow towards the top. So we're going to do leaves, and the leaves are going to be, we're going to do lines first. They're going to be shorter towards the top, and the leaves are going to be directly across from each other. So they're going to be parallel on either side. So it looks like a little man is kind of dangling over on the top. Those are his arms. So the arms of the leaves going down are going to be directly across from one another, and they're going to be shorter on the top. So I want you to put in like a 1/2 inch gap in between and just put in little arms or little leaves. We're going to bring these to life, kind of working your way down. And there's a lot in this picture. So just take your time and just add in. This is the details that go a long way. And as your fern rotates, you can kind of control the direction of these leaves. These ones are kind of pointing down. And the leaves can get, as you get towards the middle, they can get a little longer. But you want to maintain the space. You can have the leaves be pointing up a little bit. Some in the middle for me are kind of going out straight. Your leaves could be pointing upwards. And then we'll bring these to life in a really cool, easy way. So doing a little bit of an upward bend is good. It looks better than the other one. I did a couple in the middle that were not so bendy. I could actually change it a little bit. And I'm going to go kind of all the way down. And you can always re-extend these. Like if you want them to be a little longer, you can. So one of the textures, as you're working on that, there's like little V's that kind of that build the structure for these. Out towards the end of the leaves, it's smaller. So I'm going to start kind of on the inside. And see how I did a little bit of a V right there. You're going to do a bunch of V's stacked on one another. And I'll do one example and I'll hold it closer. And you want it to get more narrow towards the end. So you can see here, I did a lot of different V's. Now I can make them a little longer. Kind of like a palm tree, like different parts of the palm are a little longer and shorter. So see how there's lots of V's stacked on one another? Try that technique for each of these lines. And you can modify that. This is just a new technique for us to try. You can also look at the picture. You might see them doing it a little differently. But these are outward V's and they get a little, they're longer towards the middle of the stem and they get a little shorter as you work your way out. But this will give that kind of fluffy fern-like. Have fun, make sure you're breathing, you say hello. This is the part where we get to have fun with some of these really meticulous details. And a little longer towards the stem helps, I've realized. It's kind of holiday-ish a little bit to me, but it's very pretty. Makes it look a little softer, a little more elegant. Just pick a style that works for you and go with it. Try having the end of the fern leaf be a little thinner. Even if you need to make it a little longer to accentuate it, feel free to make it a little longer. I'll bring mine a little closer so you can see. You can be a little abstract. It does not have to be precise. Any way you want to fill in these, feel free. Check your brush. You might want to use a smaller brush. You can use the tiny brush that I am. Just make sure you're spinning it. For me, I'm getting some thicker brush strokes, which I don't really want because I'm being lazy and I'm not going back and like spinning it on my palette, but that's okay. You can have a little bit more thicker brush strokes. You just want this, pick a style that works for you and just go with it. That's the best thing any of us could do. And do not rush. This is some of that detailed work that you can be so proud of. Typically, sometimes we rush through these classes, and I'm here to remind us that you don't need to rush. We are under no time restrictions. We're here to have a good time. And I'm just working my way down. Some of you might be a little more speedy than me. I'm just playing with the details a little bit. And if anybody's ahead of me, that's fine. You're going to do the same. Well, actually the flower, the yellow fern next to us isn't as, the leaf detail is a little different. It's more of like the rounded leaf detail. So if you wanted to jump ahead, you won't hurt my feelings. But if you wanted to wait, that's fine too. I'm going to get a little bit more white paint. Anybody's interested, I buy my paint from Blick. They have a lot of different types of paint. So if you've enjoyed the quality of the paint that I may have sent you in the past, that's where I get it. Currently, that's where I get my paint. I'm just slowly filling in this beautiful fern detail. It's taking your time and building in these details. My ferns just look so soft and elegant because we're just going so slow, and it's important that sometimes when we have the space just to kind of really try something new and be thoughtful of what we're doing. It's really fun to see how it turns out. And if you've paused and you've leaned back in your chair, you're really starting to see the beauty of this picture, of all the layers, of all the work that we've done. How stunning and reflective this, all the detail we've put in is really quite nice. I like the contrast a lot. Wait till we add this yellow stem in next. That's really gonna wow the group here too. So I'll jump to that in just a minute. I'm almost down here at the bottom. I'm going to use that same canary yellow. All right. So love it, super pretty. It's not exactly a fern, but I like the texture, came out really fun. All right. So I'm going to, for anybody that wants to join me, I'm going to switch to my canary yellow. I'm going to use the same brush. So I'm swishing away and cleaning this off. Don't hesitate to stretch. If you check your posture, for me, I'm like leaning and hunching, not a great position, but feel free to stretch your neck and stretch your arms. We'll do the yellow one next. And then maybe we'll do a quick flip and reveal now, just to check in with folks. Let me see here. So I'm going to unpin me, go to the gallery. Oh, beautiful. Looks great, Terry and Kira and Janice, Douglas, very nice. You all have a really nice shape. Ooh, I like yours, Diane. Yours is like very funky. Oh, Mary, nice bend. Nice. Jill, yours is very full. Looks great. So fun. Excellent work. All right. Well, feel free to keep working on that. I will, for being mindful of time, I'll show you how to do this second flower as a technique. I might come in, ladies and gents, and like on mine, the white is kind of thin in some places. So I might come in and like go over it with like a little bit more white. So it's a little bit more bold. Some of you might want to do that too. I'll also do like a little bit of a white water wash. Maybe I'll do that now with some of these flowers over on the left, since I still have a little bit of, I have a little bit of the paint right here. So a little bit of water and white, and I'm just going to fill in some of these potted flowers, these poppies that haven't popped yet. I'm just going to do a little bit of a white water wash inside of those just for fun. You don't have to do that now if you don't want to, but I'm just going to, I really like seeing the blue back, but this is just giving them a little bit more, it's just like a little bit more, more solidness. All right. There, I just filled those in just a touch. All right, and I'm going to switch to the yellow. So this is the cool part. So my yellow flower is going to bend in the opposite direction. So we're going to do that stem first. I'm going to use that small brush to be in control. We have more control over our smaller brush. All right. I'm going to use my finger for placement. So I want to center my yellow flower kind of in this remaining quadrant. So for me, I'm going to be really thoughtful of like how high I put it. So I'm actually going to start, I'm going to put the top of this. It's going to be a little taller than this one. And I'm going to say I want the top of my yellow flower to be here, and it's going to bend kind of to the, it's going to be bending down to the left a little bit and then coming kind of in the center here. So I'm just going to eyeball it, freehand it, and then it's just going to come down. So I freehanded it and I'll go over this line so you can see it. I'm doing a nice thin canary yellow line. But see how the fern is bowing to the left? This one is kind of going to the right a little bit, and it's centered in this space. Again, if you wanted to add in like a second fern or a second yellow flower or leaf here, you could. And the leaves for this second yellow leaf, or yeah, it's a big leaf basically. These are going to be easier. So on the top of this, I'm going to put a long kind of skinny leaf. So it's kind of like the teardrop kind of leaf, where it's long and thin and narrow. And this is going to be the top. So that's the top of the leaf. It has a point on top, and it's actually a leaf shape. I'm going to do a nice solid yellow. And since, hey, I have my yellow paint, second coats of this yellow is a really good idea. So I have my yellow paint in my hand, and my moon happens to be dry. So you could always let your stem dry over here for a minute. And if you want to do a second coat on your moon, how convenient, we could do that. Because that leaf on top, some of this you'll need 2 coats of so having a little patience. So we're going to do the same kind of like paralleled arm treatment that we did for the fern for these leaves. So these leaves are all going to be in the same family. So I want them to all be fairly the same size as well. So they're going to be across from one another. Like your first one looks like one of those happy dancing flowers from Bambi. That's what it reminds me of. With the little smiley faces and like the hats. So funny. I don't know if that was the show movie, probably. It's been too long. And then you're just going to connect it with a little bit of a line. So really simple. The ends of the leaves are pointy. And you're going to do solid yellow in color. I am going to do a second coat after. But as you all know, acrylic dries really quickly. So all good. And these leaves, they can point like outward. They don't need to be pointing straight up, or they don't need to be pointing horizontally. And you can have a little connector connecting the leaf to the stem. And you can keep these leaves fairly close to one another. They don't need to be touching, but they should be fairly close, just so they're not too straggly away from one another. See how there's a little bit of spacing? Just whatever spacing you decide, try to keep that consistent. Just kind of lean back. I start with kind of where I want the end of the leaf to be, and the middle is a little bit more rounded. And the round of the brush can help you with the shaping, and the tip can give you a nice clean tip on the end, that fine point. And you can have a little line connecting the leaf to the stem.
I'm going to ask you a really simple question.
Yeah.
How is it that you get your lines so nice and steady and even? Because I tend to like run out of paint every 3 inches or so, and I get these little splotches in my lines.
So are you doing your leaves, or are you doing your stem?
There's, like for the stem.
If I run out of paint, I usually just I'm super confident, and I just I put enough paint on my brush. I kind of do the twisting, and then I keep going all the way down. And if I lose paint, or if I think I'm going to lose paint, I stop and I'll go back and I'll get a little bit more, and then I'll start where I ended up, and then I come down some more, and then I'll stop and I'll go get a little bit more.
Okay, so you're not adding water or anything.
I'm not adding
smooth it out.
water. Nope. I'm just going back and getting a little bit more paint, and just doing like a little 1, 2, and just kind of weaving it down and just going down a little further.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Good question. Good question. But kind of take your time on these details, the shapes of your leaves. My leaves are rounded on both sides. This one right here was a little flat on top. Don't really like it, but that's okay, right? Art is art. That's the way that leaf wanted to be. But you can try doing your leaves rounded on both sides if you want, and pointy on the end. And then you can do a little line connector to hook it to the stem. And it's going to need a second coat. And you can make these leaves. My leaves are getting a little wider and a little less long. I got to go back, and this is me about, I'm noticing that I need to go back to my longer leaves. They're getting a little chubby in some areas, which is fine, but I really like the little bit the longer and the luscious leaf here. So if you notice your style is changing like mine, I don't know. And don't worry too much, but just correct it as you go. And I will go back in and do a second coat for all of these leaves. They'll look a lot nicer with the second coat. It'll be punchy, just like the moon. If anybody went back and did a little bit of the moon, secondary detail, that's where you start to really notice this bold, beautiful punch of yellow on top of all these other stunning colors. And I like to outline the leaves and then go in and fill them in. Even if you've already painted a leaf, even when you do a second coat, I like to outline them and then gently fill them in. And you can see the difference. I just filled in these two right here, and they're looking great. You don't need to do leaves all the way down either. So in the picture, the stem is fairly present. So I might just do one little smaller leaf right here and leave some of the stem and just see how it looks. Again, this is a mindful component of your art, how far you want to do the leaves down. Sometimes if you don't have someone reminding you to ask yourself that question, we forget and we go leaf crazy, which is fine. Some of you might want to have lots of leaves, and that's fine. But some of you might want to pause and have a stem as a focal point. I might have some of the stem. I might do like a couple small leaves down here and then leave the stem as like a focal point. There, align this with a couple of small leaves. I'm so excited to see your work. I hope you're all enjoying this so far. So many details in this one, but it's worth it. And then I'm gonna probably do like 2 coats. I might even do 3. Who knows? Let's see how the week goes for us here. But the more if you invest in doing 3 coats of yellow, it'll look really good on these leaves. This is the stuff that takes a while. But it's worth it. Artists typically don't care how long something takes until they're happy with it. And that's what I encourage for each of you. If you have the time to keep working on this. Never let art rush you. And the nice thing is that you all have the supplies on hand. You're not in a studio borrowing something from someone else. You're all fortunate to have this with you in your homes. So I'm just giving you an example of what some of the second layer of yellow looks like on these leaves. And you can see even the difference. I went up this side and coming down, and the difference of the yellow is just quite noticeable. And this is only a second coat. So as we are kind of doing any finishing touches, I encourage you all to look at your sky and look at any of these other elements. For me, I'm definitely to feel like I'm more finished. I'm going to probably do a second coat of white on the fern because I think that would look really good with a second coat and with a steady hand. And then with the yellow, I will strive to doing a third coat. But do whatever you're most comfortable with. If you feel like you used enough paint the first time or it's sticking better, or if you're just happy with the way it looks, you do you in that regard. but what I'll do here is be mindful of time, and we'll take a quick check-in with one another. And I'd love to see your work. So I will pause. I might work on my moon a little bit more. Let's see here. I'm going to switch back to gallery view and check in with each of you. How's it going? I love it. Oh, stunning. So Kira's still filling in. Me too. Nice. Wonderful job. Very nice. Terry, that's lovely. So some of you might notice, like, if you have gaps, like add in another one, like either a yellow or a white. Just think about the balance of those objects, right? If you feel like you went smaller than I did, if my fern was bigger or if my yellow leaf was bigger, if you want to tuck in another smaller one, maybe bending the opposite direction or filling in any of that space, it can even come in on the side of the painting too. That could be really beautiful. So think about what space you might have. Jill, that looks lovely. Jill, you could definitely do a second yellow flower in there too. So pretty. Well, you all can decide that. So what did you think about this inspiration? It was quite different and fun, wasn't it? I really liked it personally.
Yeah,
Cool.
it was a lot of fun. Thank you, Megan.
Good. You're so welcome. It's so funny. I mean, you think just layering, simple colors on top of one another, but the character, and I love that the designs are all a little bit different, but they all complement one another. And again, a simplistic design. I really like that. So I hope you all enjoyed yourselves. I'll hang out for a few minutes. Are there any questions before we wrap up? But I thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoyed tonight's class.
Megan, you had mentioned somewhere along the lines, that we could send you a little something for this. I know you're doing it gratuitously, but I don't know how to do that. And my chat stuff, my window won't open up properly. So I don't know if you put anything in chat or not, or if it's in the email.
Yeah, let me do this. I will grab my PayPal. Let me see. PayPal. Let me see here. So I'll put a link for my PayPal. If anyone's interested in leaving gratuity, it is not required. I'm here for all of you, and we all deserve this break. We work hard. So that's in the chat. I'm also on Venmo. My Venmo is, I think it's Megan VW is my Venmo. But thank you, Terry. That's kind. Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you all for being here. When you finish, please send me a picture. I have a whole repository of participants' artwork. So I love seeing your paintings after you finish them. If there's any follow-up questions, if you say, Megan, I have this weird gap, what color fern should I put there or flower, let me know. I'm happy to help you with any of those balancing acts or refinements. So thank you for being here. It was so nice to see each of you.
Thank you very much, Megan.
You're welcome. Happy Wednesday, and have a great rest of the week.
You too.
Take care,
Thank you.
everybody.